Buying and building income properties can expose you to a lot of risks. That's why I put my properties under LLCs when I can. Well, that's not feasible for most folks because of how traditional mortgages are set up these days, but there is a way around it. Let me show you some of the creative structuring and how I protect myself when I can't move a property into its own LLC, but I still want maximum protection. Let me tell you about this little court fiasco that I've got going on. So I have this really nice mid-century modern property you guys have all seen before on the channel that's inside the city that we had just fixed up literally right before the big C came and messed up the short-term rental market. We had just launched the property and we were gearing up to make between $350 to $400 a night, but then our city locked down and then basically short-term rentals all but came to a standstill for several months. So naturally, we already planned for this. We switched over to mid-term rentals, which is essentially corporate stays or people needing temporary housing for a few months. We eventually found a tenant, did a background check, signed a lease, did all that good stuff, and away we went trying to recoup our investment. Now, things were going pretty well, but when it came to the end of the leasing period, the tenant refused to leave. Okay. No big deal. We'll just have to give the tenant a notice and then we get the property back in 60 days. Well, the tenant also refused to pay rent. Okay, this now is becoming a problem. But you're probably asking,
tenants can't just refuse to leave and then also stop paying rent too, right?
Technically, yes, they can. Anyone who enters your property with the intent to rent can do this. And obviously it depends on your state laws, and this is why I'm leaning away from liberal cities now, but this also includes short-term rentals. But wait, just to rub it in a little bit more and put a little more salt in the wound, our lovely state and county decided to pass laws where homeowners and landlords in our situation literally could not take any legal action against non-paying tenants for 180 days. And also it takes about 46 weeks for proper notices to go out and to wait for trial. Okay, now this isn't just me airing my dirty laundry, but the worst has yet to come if we didn't structure our business correctly. Legal battles can go both ways. The tenant can launch a countersuit or unlawful eviction, which this particular tenant has threatened. This could be against me personally if we had not set up the agreement through the management LLC. Now, because of that separation, not only are my personal assets protected, but also we have the proper insurance policies in place to help fight any further legal battle. Now, it's definitely not a fun process, not at all, but it could have been a whole lot worse without the proper separation with the management LLC and the insurance policies. So the moral of the story is long-term rentals are not fun, and liberal cities that are heavily favor tenant laws and screw over good homeowners and landlords are also not very fun. And ultimately what you get is an exodus of investors, entrepreneurs, and a big housing shortage. But again, another video for another day. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the profitability of that property really sucks right now. We just wanted a good tenant and get the chance to, like I said, recoup our investment. But hopefully as these insane protection laws come to an end, we can get the money that's owed to us. Now, in full transparency, I am not a legal, financial, nor insurance professional or expert, and I am definitely not giving you personal or professional advice. Being real with you, each state and individual situation is very different and requires nuanced decisions to be made. So what I'm sharing with you today is what I have done and should be considered general information. Use it to then discuss it with actual local experts for your personal situation. Now, making money from real estate is one of the main ways we engage in investing when we start leveraging our money for future returns and thinking about making our money work for us, rather than us just always working for money. Now, whether you're buying your first property or whether you already own several, you probably did it under your own name, right? Sure, because I did the same thing, and for 98% of you out there who are watching this right now, you probably did it this way too. Now, this is not ideal because buying income properties directly under our name or your name can be risky and expose us to costly legal battles and fees. And although we may not be in the position to pull out a commercial or investment loan to buy a property directly into an LLC, we can still reap the benefits even if the property is still under our name. It comes down to structuring. How do I know this? Because this is how I was advised to do it myself, and I'm currently wrapped up in the court system with one of my properties as we speak with this type of structuring. Now, there are two solutions to this. One is never expose yourself to any type of risk, and then two, never invest in liberal cities. Both are a bit impractical, but I'm more in favor of the latter option based on what I've experienced lately, which you'll learn more about here in a little bit. Now, for this reason, savvy entrepreneurs are learning to shift the responsibility and risk exposure from themselves and over to a well-protected entity, such as an LLC, even if the property is owned in their name or our names. This can not only protect you, but in some cases, be even better than just shifting your property into an LLC. Now, there are two main reasons why people leverage LLCs and buy properties under them. Reason one, they have different investors and partners for each income property. And reason two, they want to separate their income property away from themselves and their personal assets. Now, these two reasons are not mutually exclusive. There is a problem with this though. We don't all have investors or the background to access loans and capital that will allow us to buy property under an LLC. FYI, traditional mortgages and lenders will shy away from putting a property under an LLC due to federal regulations. That's the traditional mortgages. Now you're probably like, okay, well, doesn't really help us. It's frustrating only that the rich can sit at the big kids table, but don't panic. I have a backup plan that I like to use. So what do you do if you can't legally or ethically move your home or property into an LLC? Well, I first create a new LLC to manage or lease the property from myself. And then I build layers of insurance policies. If you can't put the deed of your property into an LLC, just create a new entity to manage it and shift that responsibility. And the good thing about this pathway is that it's not some complicated, wonky legal loophole or trickery. It's actually pretty simple and fast. Now, if your lender won't allow you to put your property under your business, or if you have already purchased a property directly under your name, you want to talk over your options with a legal and insurance expert about what I like to do, which is first, confirm that I have the necessary insurance policies under my name for the property. This will vary state by state because each state has different minimums and different, basically, laws. Second is to set up a new entity. In my case, it's a property management company or property management firm. You set it up at the state level and then the federal level. State level is just basically go online to a Secretary of State website and then set up your LLC or whatever entity you want to create. And then you go to irs.gov and then you create your federal ID number or your EIN number, which stands for Employer Identification Number. Next, I then create an agreement between the owner, which is in this case me, and the management entity. I then run all business transactions through the new entity. Bank accounts, credit cards, leases, contracts, everything. I then pick up the phone, call a commercial insurance broker, and set up an E&O and CGL insurance policies for that new LLC, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit. I then repeat this process for each commercial activity on each property. That's it. Just a few extra steps, and you actually have almost all the same protections and benefits as if you had an LLC for the property itself. And if you truly want to protect your assets from all angles, you may even want to look into post and pre-nuptials. Considering that in the US, 50% of marriages end in divorce, it's something that you may want to talk over with your partner. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, just a heads up, each state has laws around minimum coverage, but you may not want just the minimum. You'll want to make sure that your coverage matches your risk exposure. Also make sure that your homeowner's insurance provider is fully aware of all the structures and activities occurring on your property to make sure that your base policy is solid and set up correctly. Now, I'll tell you which policies to look into to help shift liabilities, but remember, no matter how many LLCs or insurance policies you haven't set up, nothing can protect you from illegal actions and gross negligence, except maybe like a team of 7-figure lawyers. Now, first off, a lot of people confuse liability structuring with tax strategy. Those are two very different things. How you structure your business really doesn't have an impact on taxes until you get into like payroll, corporations, and such. But again, another topic, another day. Just realize that those two things are separate. And it's that time of the year again. So if you need some help with taxes or tax strategy, or just general help if you're an entrepreneur or real estate around taxes, you can work with my personal team that just happens to specialize in both those areas. Just email my guy, Kevin, and he'll get you all squared away. So if taxes isn't the main concern here right now, what is it? The word that everybody hates, except maybe the lawyers: lawsuits, or simply put, getting sued. This can occur from someone getting hurt, whether it's visitors, overnight guests, or even contractors working on your property. There can also be lawsuits for harassments and discrimination, whether it's true or not. And then obviously there are theft and damages. And those are the three key things that we need to consider and distance ourselves from and use protection against. Now, in business and rentals, it's not only about risk mitigation and avoidance, but it's also strategy. And I call this strategy shifting. And in our case here, it's shifting responsibility or liability from us and our personal name onto something else, such as an LLC or insurance policies. So it doesn't come back to us, or at least reducing that risk as much as possible. So if we can't create the LLC at the property level, we can do it at the management level, where a new entity is created that manages the property itself and conducts all of the businesses. Now, for all intents and purposes, this is the name and face of the property. Everything funnels through the new management firm, including the bookings, lease agreements, everything. Now, different areas have different laws around property management companies. Some require certifications and others do not. Make sure you understand this. This is very, very critical if you go into managing properties either for yourself and especially if you do it for other people. Now, if you're like me and you're into land hacking, you may be running different activities on one property to maximize profits, such as farming, rentals, glam sites. Other examples could be storage, vineyards, or even an event venue. But in theory, you could set up multiple entities that manage or lease different parts of the property. This helps further separate the risk across different income streams. All right, so it makes sense if you can't put a property directly into an LLC, you create a new LLC to manage the property and then you shift the responsibility once. But at the end of the day, your name is most likely still attached to the property in the LLC, right? Right. So we need to shift the responsibility or liabilities again. In the case that something does go wrong and the LLC is at fault, you still have to deal with the financial consequences of court, legal, lawyer, and a bunch of other fees, and perhaps even settlement. This is where you start looking into layering protection, also known as insurance. Of course, with the property, you'll have your basic homeowners or property insurance policy. Then for your management LLC, you want to look into two different types of policies: errors and omissions insurance, E&O, and commercial general liability insurance, CGL. These two policies will step in and cover your defense and any payouts required in the case of a lawsuit, theft of damages were to occur. So by now the layering looks something like this. You've got the property in your name, but you also have property insurance. Now at this time, you can also get a stamp or endorsement to help cover the other commercial activities on your property if you choose to and if your provider provides them. Then you actually have the management LLC that begins that separation, and that forward-facing company also has two insurance policies to help protect the business and you as the entrepreneur. And if you want to sleep really, really well at night, you can even get a personal and commercial umbrella policy that will even further protect you in a really bad storm. Now, this is an example of what my flow of responsibility looks like now when I land hack and have multiple income streams all coming off of one property, where I've broken up the property into multiple businesses, all with their own risk exposures and insurance policies and LLCs. Now, I've heard from many that it's better to not have a lot of policies because you become attractive to attorneys and potential litigants, and because they just see this big juicy payday. My response to that is always the same. Well, what's the other option? To not have proper protection and just pray that you don't get sued? In my honest opinion, it's best to work with local experts, insurance and business law professionals, and set up the best protection possible considering your risk exposure. So if you're just renting out one door, okay, you may not need a bunch of big policies. The standard or maybe even state minimums may be more than sufficient. But if you're running multiple doors, a pumpkin patch, an archery range, campsite, maybe there's a pond or a lake on your property and you have a big event venue, I'd strongly suggest working with experts to make sure that you have the proper coverage and structuring. And if land hacking, well, like what I just described, or short-term rentals sound interesting to you, I'll be hosting a free seminar online soon and reopening enrollment to my land hacker and six-figure host programs. There's even an opportunity for you to work directly with me where I help you build out your project, or we even invest in a deal together. Head over to my website, kaiandrew.com, and sign up for the waitlist, and you'll be the first to know when dates get firmed up on my end and things start to launch. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. I'll see you guys all soon. Bye.